Welcome to Let the Quran Speak. We're looking now at the story of the Exodus and the Israelites' arrival in the Promised Land. We're going to look at that from the Bible and the Quran, and we're going to try to understand how it relates to the present-day conflict. Dr. Shabir, welcome to Let the Quran Speak.
Pleasure to be on.
So, the story of the Exodus, the Israelites entering the Promised Land, Dr. Shabir, is this told both in the Quran and the Bible in the same sort of detail?
Not in all of the details,
Okay.
but the Bible has more details.
Okay.
And the Quran, in a way, alludes to the story in bits and pieces without giving a continuous narrative all in one place, and without giving the whole story. Just the Quran.
That's the style of the Quran, right?
Yes.
It kind of like elaborates or adds little details. Or corrects the story that it corrects the narrative.
It mostly reminds people of the story.
Yes.
So it's presuming that the story is already known, and people just have to be reminded of the lessons to be derived from the story.
Okay. So should we start with the Bible then? What does the Bible say?
Yeah. So basically, the Bible shows that Joseph's family, his parents and brothers lived in the land of Goshen, and Joseph was sold as a slave in Egypt. But there he eventually rose to rulership, and his brothers went to seek grain in Egypt when their region suffered a famine, and they received grain. Eventually they came to realize that this is Joseph there, now the ruler of Egypt, and Joseph's parents and his brothers go to eventually settle in Egypt. And the generations of Israelites continue to live in Egypt until a later ruler, a Pharaoh, who forgot all about Joseph and the Israelites and how they got there, enslaved the Israelites. And it is in that state where the Israelites were suffering oppression that God raised up Moses to be their deliverer. So you know the story of Moses and Aaron. This is told again and again in the Quran, Musa and Harun. And in fact, Moses, on whom be peace, Musa in the Quran is the prophet that is most often mentioned, more than any other prophet. His story is told at length in many different chapters of the Quran. We find prominent mention in Surah Al-Baqarah, for example, the second chapter of the Quran, Surah Al-Qasas in the Quran, and so on. Now, in both narratives, both in the Bible and the Quran, we can see that the Israelites were being oppressed, and God desired to give them a chance to have freedom from this oppression and to live in peace and to worship God. They're given the monotheistic teachings through the prophet Moses. So Moses then is directed by God in the Quran to tell the Israelites to leave at night. In the Bible, they're to leave, not necessarily at night. Moses approaches Pharaoh and says, okay, my people want to go worship in the desert, so give us a chance to go into the desert. He was using a ruse to get them out of there. Pharaoh is suspicious about this. No, you're just playing a trick on me. Nonetheless, eventually they escape, and Pharaoh pursues them, but the Pharaoh and his army are drowned in the Red Sea. The Quran says at that time Pharaoh announced his faith in God, but God says, Al-an, now, this day we save you in terms of your body so that you may be a sign for those who come later. That's in the 10th chapter of the Quran. The Israelites are therefore now safe from the army of the Pharaoh. They continue marching. They march for some 40 years, being lost in the desert. They eventually come to what is the land where they're going to live in peace. Moses comes close up to the land, up to the Jordan River, but he is not fortunate enough to be able to enter it. He dies, and the Israelites eventually cross Jordan River, come into what is now known as Palestine, and there it is expected that they will continue to live in peace in this new land.
So, Dr. Shabir, how does this relate to the present-day conflict in your mind?
Well,
How does the story, because the story is told at Passover, right?
Yes.
It's a very popular story. Every Jewish person knows this story.
Yes, and because some Muslims may not be so familiar with the story, let me mention the Passover first,
Okay.
as you mentioned it. Let me elaborate on it a little bit more. So when Pharaoh was refusing to let the Israelites go, according to both the Bible and the Quran, God gave Moses and Aaron so many signs to perform, so many miracles to convince the Pharaoh that God is with them and with his people, and he should let the people go. But Pharaoh's heart was hardened, according to the Bible. He would not let the people go. And then God gave one last ultimatum here, saying to the Israelites, okay, so this is what's going to happen. You are to slaughter an animal and mark your doorposts with the blood of the animal. And so when the angel of death comes through the land, the angel of death will see the marked doorposts and leave those houses spared, but will go into the home of every Egyptian and kill off all of their firstborn sons. So this was now known as the Passover, because the angel of death would be passing over the houses of the Israelites. And this was to be a memorial to be done annually. And to this day, this is one of the chief celebrations in the Jewish calendar, this Passover. It is in memorial of the fact that God spared them and God saved them from this oppressive regime and gave them the freedom that they enjoy. Moreover, the Bible emphasizes again and again, with this story as reference, that Israelites should never oppress any other people. Because they should remember that they were once slaves in Egypt, and therefore, they don't want to enslave somebody else because they know what it is. It's just like South Africa saying, we know what apartheid is and we see it happening there. We don't want to see it anywhere in the world. So our Jewish friends would do well to heed the lessons of the Bible, just as Muslims as well would do well to heed the lessons of the Quran and what survives in the Bible of the teachings of the great prophets, including the prophet Moses. And
so what's the lesson for Muslims, Dr. Shabir, from the story that is told in the Quran about Jews entering the Promised Land?
Well, I think what is important here is that Jews and Muslims need to live together in peace and harmony. And the oppression that was visited upon the Palestinians, and has been continuing for the last 3/4 of a century, this is contrary to this whole story of the Exodus and the story of the Passover, and the lessons to be drawn from it. Because remember, the people are being told again and again in the Bible, look, you were slaves in Egypt, so don't enslave others, don't oppress others, be kind to others, and so on. The Quran itself enjoins upon Muslims, وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا, speak kindly to people. So even at the level of speech, we are to speak kindly, much, when it comes to greater acts than speech, then obviously we have to maintain kindness to all people. So we need to bring this sort of oppression to an end. We need to bring the occupation to an end. We need to bring the war to an end. We need to bring back humanitarian aid to the region. We have to save the people from starvation, especially the women and children. We need to save people from dying from this senseless bombing, even in the civilian areas and the tents. People's homes have been destroyed and they have recourse to living in tents, even in the harsh wintry climate. And then the tents are being bombed as well. So there is no safe haven. You're told, leave the north, go to the south because we're going to bomb the north. And then you start bombing the south as well. So what's going on? So there's no safe place remaining in Gaza. How could this be? And how could people benefiting from the Exodus story and celebrating the Passover be, on the other hand, inflicting this kind of humanitarian disaster on the population of Gaza?
Thank you for sharing the story with us, Dr. Shabir.
You're welcome.
And the lessons.
Assalamu alaikum. We have some exciting news to share with you.
As you know, Let the Quran Speak has been on TV screens and social media for 22 years.
We've been reaching people all around the world, spreading positivity and good, and helping people experience the beauty of Islam and the accomplishments of Muslims.
We've been shooting in this very space for the past 2 decades.
And now, with the help of Allah, we're about to get the keys to Muslim Media Hub.
If you like what we're doing, you're gonna love Muslim Media Hub even more.
Because it's the next step up.
Think new TV shows, podcasts, social media content, and film.
It will have new talent, more youth, and a lot more space and resources to do what we love. Spread the message of Allah.
Our Muslim Media Hub costs $2.4 million.
And for that, we need to raise $300,000. Please give whatever you can. Every dollar counts.
It's our collective responsibility to share the message of Islam with our fellow human beings. Please help establish Muslim Media Hub so we can do this.
It's a sadaqah jariyah, something that will continue to be of benefit to the Muslim community long after we are gone.
Thank you, and may Allah bless you and your loved ones today and always.
Assalamu alaikum.